I have some Skyzone goggles that I plan to take apart for the second time. The first time I had them apart was because the IPD adjusters were loose. These were flopping all over the place. The display inside was flopping all over the place. So I decided to glue down the front shafts, and it did solve the problem, but later on I decided to email the manufacturer, and the manufacturer told me that there was something that I could do inside to affect the repair instead of what I did. So what I'm going to do is take these back apart. I'll do a take apart guide, and then I'm going to show you what I glued. I'm going to unglue it, hopefully. That was the whole idea of using hot glue. And then I'm going to attempt to make the repair that the manufacturer was talking about. I'm going to pop these 3 screws out. Okay, that one I got lucky. Where's the next one? I think it's there. That's in further. Yes, no, maybe. I think I see it. Okay. You have to be a little forceful and yet gentle at the same time. You have to know the stress limits of plastic, like another gentleman reviewer was discussing, because if you break these tabs, the thing ain't going to stay together very well. Okay, I'm going to work from this side over now. There we go. And this should be the last one. About there. Hey, okay. Let's have a look at the top. There we go. Yep. Alright, there's a strap on this one. The other 3 screws don't have a strap. It up. There we go. That's probably a better idea. Okay, and this look backup plan. There we go. Who knows what else, what other evil lurks in here, so you carefully lift it up and see what's still attached. I see some ribbon cables that there's no reason why I can't just fold them back. And I also have to note how this went in. Okay. Little bracket. This little bracket is a clamp that holds this board in place. It goes on the post here. So, here comes the optics. You'll have to forgive me too whether I'm in the frame well or not. I can't really tell because I'm shooting with a Mobius and there's no video feedback. I think I might have been a little too more forward than I had to be. So I'm going to take these and I'm just going to kind of pull them out and lay them like that to preserve the ribbon cable. Alrighty. These little caps are what the subject is right there. There's a spring-loaded ball bearing in there, and it presses on the underside of the optics. And you can see the little ratchet surface there. And they're telling me that the caps need to be lifted higher. So I'm going to take a measurement on how many millimeters high they are now. At least I'm going to give it my best shot. And then I think I'm going to over raise it and then lay these optics in place. Put the board on top because I think the top limit of these, believe it or not, is this plastic surround that goes around the optic assembly to shield the insides when you slide it left and right. It keeps it looking professional, keeps out dirt and stuff like that, I suppose. And I think that the tension keeps this up against the top like that. What we're going to do is we're going to raise these to increase the height of the tensioner. Then that will lift up on these optics and it will push them up against the top here and slide against the top. It looks like there's no components in the way, so it's going to be interesting to see if this works. I'm going to measure it, proceed carefully, see what happens to raise it. Another note while I have this apart is I cut the corner here and here. This tension on this rode up on the nose arch and it wanted to slide back again. So I trimmed the corners off just a little bit to keep that from happening. So I decided to remove the cap altogether. The best way that I discovered to do that is just grab it with your fingers. It helps to have some fingernails and pull the thing off. This is the cap. Okay, safekeepings. Here's the spring. I'm not picking up the ball bearing because the thing was so small. I don't want to take a risk in losing it. And there is what it looks like without the cap on it. So the spring went in there, cap went on top, ball bearing fit in the cap. I think I have to assemble this upside down because when I popped the cap off, the ball bearing came out. I think this one's going to work. Alright, that's acceptable. These were installed at 8 millimeters high, and I would imagine that these might be 8.5 or 9 millimeters high now. Ooh, almost 10 millimeters high. Carefully lay the optics in without stressing the ribbon cables. At least not too much anyway. It's a little hairy to lay this in place. I'm trying not to press down too hard to compress the caps, the white caps. I'm going to be doing that later. If you back the screw up a little bit, you'll feel it find the thread. There it goes. Make sure I don't have everything right before I get this tight. I'm really surprised that this wanted to bring the optics up so high in the front. Just a couple of millimeters and these caps really came up. There's some leverage going on there. Right now the optics are touching the top of the board, which they weren't before, and I have some tension here, alright, and they're up off the bottom too. So I think what I want to do is compress them down just enough to where, well, I'm going to feel some spring tension. Let's see what happens. Putting this back on again. And what I'm going to do is seat the circuit board all the way down. So after fiddling around with the optics, pushing down on them to compress the cap down into position, The original height to the top, measured at the lowest point on the back, it was 8 millimeters. This wants to be at 9. So both of these, after I got done, just as a coincidence, ended up being 9 millimeters. What I was shooting for was with the board on top, holding the top edge of this mask down against here, okay? A little bit of spring action, and that would be little ball bearings being compressed. Alright, that shaft is engaged down there. So is that one. I'll drop this back. Then have to drop in this. The wood should lay on top without any undue tension, except it is pushing the optics down a little bit against that little ball. Make sure everything is okay over here. The little camera's in place. Alright, yes, it is time to put this thing back together again. And I have a little bracket I have to find. There it is. That goes here. You can see a gap in the post where it belongs. And you know what? I don't want this to fall apart while I'm fussing with that. So I'm going to pop one of these little screws in, maybe 2 of them. Goes over the board and sits on top of the post. So I need to sit this down and position it. There's maybe a little bit of free play. Time for this. Line it up carefully. Snap it in firmly, evenly. That is one heck of a tight plug. That's the last thing that's going to be coming loose on this thing. That's better. This one here, you have to make sure that it's lined up. It feels like it's engaged properly with the socket. You want to feel for it to line up and kind of want to snap in place. Okay, that's it right there. Give it a little channel push down. And that felt pretty good. Going to make sure there's no dirt looming, and I'm going to start by blowing it away from the optics. This is clean. This is clean. I don't see any spare parts, so I think I got it. And just at the last second I remembered I want to assemble this upside down so the little buttons don't come out. By the way, these little buttons are not sealed against an accidental little rainstorm, so don't get caught in the rain because it'll run right past the buttons and right onto the circuit board. Will catch the little ribbon cables. These catches catch the ribbon cable. How about that? So you have to make sure that you push them back before you push them down far enough to snap in place. Just give a last minute check even after you think you got it, because lo and behold, look, there's another way it's going to snag it, so you got to push that back. This is the only thing I don't like about them, but this is not a regular occurrence to be taking these apart. Ooh, nice, nice. And we are snapping and snapping. Checking the optics. I hope I don't have to move them that much because they are tight. They're not flopping around. I'm going to say that they were right. This is the fix. And I'm happy with this. Screws go in. And I'm done.